I wanted to share that.
Okay, I thank you for that. I guess we're going to have to take it up with the land use committee members, and I feel very strongly about keeping the center the way it is. And again, I can't really see it as a big problem, but you are the folks that lease it, right? And you deal with the corporations. I don't. I follow the corporations very closely, but I don't know, who their real estate people are and who they're talking to and what their feelings are about leasing a property that's coming up for renewal. They do know that when they come to New York City area, we have very strict zoning laws, and it takes a lot to get a variance. And your track record, as it is now, I don't think it's going to change in the next 20 years, is a good track record. So I don't believe you would ever have a problem getting a variance unless something major happened where you let the shopping mall deteriorate. And there are shopping malls in this city that have been deteriorating left and right because they can't give leases. And not all of them have variances. It's just the nature of this virus that's going around. It's causing a lot of businesses to go bad. And it's also the administration in the city that seems to think restaurants cause the virus, which they don't. But that's my opinion, and I'm not privy to the information they get. But I'm skeptical about extending the 20 years. But if the land use committee, we discuss it and we come up with giving you the permission, we will. I mean, we're not going to hold you back because the land use committee speaks for for everybody. And I'm only the chair of the committee, but I have to listen to the members of the land use committee. And I would ask any member of the land use committee to please identify yourself if you have any questions and ask your question. Does anybody in the land use committee have a question?
Well, I do. I mean, well, I do. This is Dr. Burke, chairman of the board. I'm going to agree with the chairman of the land use committee in that, Attorney Bissinger, or Mr. Bissinger, I should say, in that you need the variance eliminated. And I just think that that's, in my opinion, as the land use committee chair has said, that's just a horrible excuse to suggest that you can't get tenants because of a variance. That means that you're not a good landlord if that's the case, because you should always just like be able to get tenants. So I disagree with your premise wholeheartedly. But again, that's just my opinion. What I would also do, I saw Attorney Rubenstein on before, anything, I would like to have someone look at the document that I would want to enter into a document first, MOU, before, we would approve anything, simply because of the fact that, we have been, burned before. And so I think if you're willing to do that, then maybe we would look at it. But I think our district manager made this very clear back in the month of December, and you hear from my, land use committee chair. So I'm pretty happy with both of their recommendations that under no circumstances should we waive that right. If you guys can't be creative and get tenants, then, why are you in business? But again, that's just my opinion.
Any other comments?
Hold on, I'm checking the chat and see if anybody has any raised hands.
Okay.
All right, I don't see any raised hands, and I don't see anybody on video raise hands. I have a couple of questions. When does your variance expire?
This July.
July 1st, right? Or July 7th? 17th. So it's the same as the storage facility. So you guys are early. Like you're really early
We're
So
trying,
who-
we're trying to get the approval so that we don't run past the expiration date.
All right, cool. When do you think, I know you said that you were going to do the sidewalk, so we're very grateful for that. I know that there are challenges because you have to build a retaining wall.
Right.
When do you anticipate? I mean, it's February. There's probably no construction in the winter months, but when do you think you'll get started, and when do you think you'll be done with the sidewalk?
So our team has already gotten started in terms of creating a plan for the sidewalk, getting an estimate, and they'd like to move forward just as quickly as can. So they've already gotten started. I can't guarantee when it will actually happen because it could take several months or even up to a year, depending on numerous factors, how quickly construction can get started, how quickly the city is moving and processing everything. So all I could say is we're trying to move forward as quickly as possible because our team is incentivized not to let the variance expire. So we're trying, we're moving, but there are outside factors that will also impact the timeline.
If the community board were to approve the variance with the condition that the sidewalk be built, how long does it take once you get to BSA? What's the process after us?
So we received what's called the BSA's notice of comments, which is the BSA. It's a list of questions that the project manager issues for us. We're working on responding to that, which we think we'll get back to them within the next few weeks. As soon as we get that paperwork back to them, the project manager reviews our response, and then we'll either issue a second notice of comments or they'll schedule the application for a hearing. To be honest, I have no idea and I have no control over when the application would be scheduled. I think there are some members of the BSA staff.
Yeah, they're here.
So they can speak maybe to just how quickly cases are moving these days, but I can't give you an answer to that.
Does anybody from BSA want to take a stab at it?
Hi, this is Jella Prenga, project manager from BSA. Tony Matias, the deputy director, is also on.
Hi, Tony Matias, deputy director. Currently, we are scheduling for late March, April. We understand there's some urgency on this, but we are waiting for the response to the notice of comments from Ms. Rubenstein's firm.
Okay. And
so once we have that and it's reviewed, we could then look at it and see if it's complete, satisfactory, and then put it on for the calendar. And there is a notice, I believe there's notification on this since an extension of term.
Okay. And I was notified by BSA, for full disclosure for my board members, that we need to write a letter to BSA about the whole sidewalk issue.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
since you've reached out to us about the issue, the best way would be to put it in writing for the board to review it.
Yes.
okay. The concern for the community board, and it's not just this one, but in the event that we approve this with the condition that the sidewalk get built and the sidewalk doesn't get built, what happens?
Your agreement is a separate agreement. I can't speak to that. I mean, once this case is before the board members, we cannot speak for the board members at all. So once it goes before the board, it is up to the board members to discuss this matter. We cannot speak for them.
Yeah, you're requesting this, and the board will consider your request.
Okay. So I think for my board members, then I think the 20-year, getting rid of the 20-year variance then makes it all important that we not do that, because if they never build the sidewalk, then we get another bite of the apple 20 years. And I hope to be here in 20 years, Carl. I'm only 40. So,
Well, I wish you well.
That being said, there were some folks because the sidewalk extends past your property to the storage facility. We had invited folks from Extra Space Storage to be here as well to speak on their property. Have you teamed up with them, or you're you're just solely focused on your portion of the sidewalk?
Right now, we're focused on our portion. We've obviously had some conversations with them because we told them to get in touch with your board.
Okay.
So it's kind of up in the air right now as to what they're going to do. But we don't want, because we're coming in solo, we don't want their property and their variance to impact us, because the two variances, although they were issued on the same day, they do each have their own separate calendar numbers. And so
Yeah.
we view them as separate applications.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, kudos to you for coming in early. I'm just wondering, maybe there's an economy of scale if you're working with the extra space storage on doing the sidewalk, because there is a retaining wall. I would imagine that their retaining wall would have to get done as well.
I think our client's open to a conversation. I just don't think anything has been decided yet.
Yeah, we're happy to help coordinate the design. It can be bid and built in two separate packages, and we can have a total open book saying, this is what we're building, please connect with it. But it'd be our ask that we are able to move forward independent of another piece of property owned by other individuals outside of our control.
Yeah, that's completely understood. I know that we had invited them. I'm lost track of names here, but
George, I am here. This is Brett Nelson with
Okay,
Extra
cool.
Space, representing Extra Space as their counsel. And we are definitely open to having a conversation with Arcadia on the matter. I know the sidewalk most likely will require coordination. And, as was pointed out, I think the variance issue should be treated separately, two different pieces of property, but a lot of the same issues are in play. And so we would like to coordinate with our neighbor and make sure that both the community board and the BSA, are happy with us and that we're good community members.
Do you have a calendar or an idea when you're going to come before the board with your BSA? Because it does expire in July as well.
Yeah, we are on the same schedule. We, as was pointed out, they're a little bit quicker to get started. We're still a little bit preliminary in our discussions. We've done a lot of our research, and we are close to getting ready to move forward. And so in the coming weeks, you'll see an application, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, board members, in regards to the sidewalk. I do have one question for the retail part. You were talking about attracting tenants. Do you have any vacancies now at your retail market?
We have one vacancy, and that was what I was referencing. And if and when the variance is renewed, as I said, sure, we have 20 years. But as you approach the end of that is when it becomes difficult. So the past couple of years, we've been approaching the deadline. These groups are very smart. They said, hey, wait a sec, this is not a sure thing. It's not like this is in a zone that permits commercial use where I can just sign a lease and be here for the next 20 years. There's a risk that this gets repealed. So that was what I was referencing, in that, as we approach year 20, every year we get closer, it just becomes more of a challenge. So that was my point, and I hope that was clear. We work really hard to bring good retailers and be creative and take care of the center. And I think Carl's spoken to that, and many of you have seen it. But just the fact of having a legal cap on your term is something that we contend against, and we'll have to, should the variance not be extended in perpetuity.
When you get commercial tenants, how long do they sign their leases for? Like, what's an average term for a lease?
I'd say 10 years is what we're shooting for, but they have options. So they say, okay, we'll sign 10 years, but we want to have another 5 or 10-year option. So they take the short-term view, we guarantee this lease, but that after the 10th year, we could sign on for another 5 to 10. So that starts to evaporate those options of a long-term operation when you have a cap on the variance.
Okay. There is one more point here that involves extra space storage and Arno Avenue. And just so that the board is fully aware, DOT is here as well, and they can speak a little bit to it. One of the conditions that I had wanted was that Arno Avenue be a through street between Grace Avenue and Edson Avenue. Right now, it's not. It's being used as a parking lot. My understanding, Extra Space Storage, is that that's not your space, right?
That is correct. We checked with our site team there on Edson, and that is not, those are not our vehicles being parked. We're not even sure whose they are.
Okay. Because one of the problems for my board members is that this is a quality of life issue. Over this past summer, it was being used as sort of a pseudo restaurant. They were cooking and partying and all this other stuff. And they do have vehicles that they park there that the neighbors complain about. So again, we wanted to build the street out. My understanding after speaking to DOT was we can't force Extra Space to build that site or the street out, their sidewalk. But if we do the right, I guess if we're lucky, DOT will put up a fence and a barrier and close off that site so that it's no longer being used as a parking facility. So I don't, Keith.
Yeah, Judge, that's what I was going to recommend. They should close it off.
Yeah, Keith, you want to speak to it a little?
Sure. I mean, you got everything. You hit every point exactly correct. Yeah, and if we get a letter from the board, we can certainly easily put up a fence around it to secure it so that nobody illegally uses the space. I know Teresa Cruz, who is on the call as well, who's the borough planner who represents your board. She had brought to my attention over the summer that there was somebody illegally using the space, and we did give them a notice to remove their stuff, I guess, whatever was there. And so we wait to see what the board wants us to do with it.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. We can't force anybody to build it now.
Well, Keith, you expect a letter from the board to shut it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. No problem, Carl.
I'm done, Carl. So if you want, or if anybody else has any other questions.
Anybody else have a question on this site right now?
Sydney Blair has her hand up.
Okay, Sydney, please.
Hi. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what is going on. But you, the owners of the property, want this variance approval so that in the case that you attract a business to the property, they would be able to manipulate the property with looser restriction in terms of zoning. And for that question, I'm asking, if that's the case, do you have people lined up? Like, are people requesting for this, like this site essentially to place their business?
So just to summarize the issue is that we have a variance. So the site is in a residential zone. We are permitted with this variance to have commercial or retail uses. The variance will expire, and if it is not renewed, then we are no longer permitted to rent out our property to retail or commercial users. So we're here today to extend that so that we can continue to have this commercial use in a residential zone. And the issue is that if we were to lose the variance, anyone who is a tenant of ours would be illegally occupying the building. So that's why we're asking, instead of every 20 years to come back to extend it, it would be, a huge help for us in terms of security if this was a variance that was granted, in perpetuity. I hope that explains the issue.
I just raised, Cindy raised a very, it's a weird thing. Maybe BSA can answer this for me. Is this an end workaround on rezoning? Because if we get rid of the variance forever, you're just basically, it's always going to be commercial, and you will have achieved that without a ULURP.
If you get rid of the variance, the retail uses won't be permitted to occupy the building anymore.
No,
No
I'm
more
saying
retail.
if we extend the variance in perpetuity, that you don't have to come back 20 years from now.
Then right, it would be commercial uses would be allowed forever. But it's not unheard of. There are variances that don't have a term. Some do, some don't. So it's not like this is something that's never been asked for before.
Tony or Jella, can you speak to this in terms of the city's position on basically granting a variance forever without having to go through rezoning?
I'm kind of limited in what I can say. This is an R4 zoning district. The use is not permitted. Commercial use is not permitted on this site. There is a term, as you know, of 20 years. There are variances granted at times for use in other zoning districts that do not have a term, but the term was set by the board for a reason. So,
okay, is a 20-year term, because some of the terms that I've seen from BSA have always been 10 years. So when this came back at 20 years, I was like, oh, that's a little odd. I guess terms vary depending on the property. So is 20 years seem extreme, or is a long time, or is 10-year better? I mean, I don't know.
I don't have enough information to say what the term, like the board determined at that time that 20 years was appropriate. They make a decision based on how long they want to reassess.
Okay, and that's, you're referring to your board, to the BSA board?
Yes, the BSA board.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, George, can I cut in for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I was part of the land use at that time. Joe Williams was the chair of the land use 20 years ago, and I was his vice chair. And we took a real hard, and Joe Williams lived right over by where this site is. And we had a couple of public hearings, and the people said they were looking for 10 years, and we thought it, and somebody said, why don't you give them 20 years? And at that time, we voted for a 20-year variance because of the type of retail establishments they were putting in at the time. And it worked out. So that's why that's 20 years rather than 10. So if you go back to the minutes 20 years ago, you'll probably find that.
All right. Tony, one last question for BSA. Even if we say yes as a community board to granting them and then doing away with the requirement for 20 years, the board can still come back and ask for the 20 years.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The board may want to consider keeping the term.
Okay. All right. So Carl, the floor is yours. I'm done with all my questions. I guess, we have some stuff to consider.
I have a question.
No, you have a question. Beatrice has a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you name the retail stores that are there now? And I'm not sure if you mentioned it and I missed it in the beginning, but what are the retail stores that are there now?
Josh, do you want to handle
Yeah, we have a dry cleaner, the African market, check cashing, and a Pizza Hut and Wingstop on the premise, and we have a retail vacancy.
It's very diversified.
Actually, let me actually ask a follow-up question to what Ms. Cornell's question was. What type of, she's asking what type of stores do you have there now? What type of stores are you trying to attract?
As I mentioned, we were looking to bring a restaurant into the vacant space.
What restaurant?
I can't disclose it. It was a confidential deal, but it was an international restaurant that you would all know and probably enjoy. So we're out there now.
Can
And
you give at least 5 names? And then again, because you were giving names without disclosing the restaurant.
I'd love to. You're putting me on the spot, but
well, I'm just saying, if you give 5 names, right, you're not.
It's a very well-known breakfast establishment.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
That you would all enjoy eating their pancakes, but
That's fair enough.
with COVID, that all fell through, and right now it's, as I think, because Carl mentioned, it's really tough out there on the leasing side. We're just trying to set ourselves up for success and bring out a group that wants to be here for the long term. I think that, look, we're hoping to have a long term, remove the variance. 20 years would certainly give us the security to find someone new. Anything less than that, I think, would make it more difficult and commercially challenging to bring in a good group. But I hope that answers the question.
Can I ask a question, please? This is Anthony Reed. Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yes. Speaking to the gentleman that's acting like it's a secret for the company he's going to bring there, I think that's really offensive. That you're acting like you don't want to tell us who might come there or who you're trying to get there. That's really offensive because, you're coming to our community and you shouldn't be afraid to say who might come. Like, they gave you an option of giving 5 names. Like, come on, are you kidding me? And you're stuttering? Like, I feel really uncomfortable with that because you want this variance to be removed or whatever you're trying to do with this variance, but you don't want to give no names. Are you kidding me?
Anthony, can I answer the question for him?
No, I'm talking to him. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him.
No, but I will answer the question because it's standard procedure. When you're in negotiations, Anthony, I'm telling you.
Speak. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you're in negotiations to bring a tenant into your building, until it's signed, it's confidential because they're going into different areas of the company applying for the site and so forth. They're not permitted legally to tell you who the people are.
Is that fair for the community? Like, how do you know we want these people in there?
Anthony, you have a choice of letting Anthony, you have a choice of letting the place clear. You can't. Under the law, they're a confidential. When you're dealing to lease something, especially commercial space, it's confidential until you meet some type of agreement of what you're going to do. And I can give you the example. The Sears building in Cross County Center will be a target, but they were negotiating for over a year for that site before they could announce that Target will be in there in 2022. They could not divulge who was negotiating with them because that's not permitted because it's confidential.
So it's still confidential if you asking for that variance? Isn't that something?
Yes, it is. It's confidential. He cannot release who he's dealing with. That's a confidential between the lawyers of Arcadia and the lawyers of whoever's trying to put a location in there. He gave you more than he should have when he said it was a breakfast.
Okay, I respect that, but I'm just saying that, how does the community benefit from not knowing? Like, I understand that it's the law and all that. I just think that it's some kind of way we got to be comfortable with this situation also.
Well, not knowing, did you know what was going in Bay Plaza? Nobody knew the exact stores that were going in Bay Plaza because it's all confidential until the lease is signed.
Right, well, maybe we need to work on that so we can be a little bit more comfortable with
Well,
who's
that's
coming in our
cool.
community. Because a lot of times they make these promises and they don't live up to them. And that's what my concern is. I want the community to be satisfied with what comes in there. I understand the confidentiality and everything, but I'm just like.
Well, if you don't like what moves in there, you don't have to go there, and they will leave.
How long is the lease gonna be? How long is their lease gonna be? Like, how long do you have to deal with these people once they get in there?
Well, first of all, it depends on, as he said before, most leases are 10 years with an option for 5 or 10 more years. That's
Right, so
almost
we're not comfortable with them. How long is it going to take us to get them out of there if we're not comfortable with them?
well, if you don't go there, they'll break their lease and leave.
No, that's like, come on. Like, if you don't go there.
Well, it's fact, Anthony. It's fact.
So I'm just, all right, I understand what you're saying. What I'm asking you is how long is it going to take for us to get them out of there? So you got to just tell people, you got to boycott them, basically, you're telling me.
You just don't go there.
The only way you can get them out of there.
Can I say something, Anthony and Carl?
Yeah.
My reason for asking what kind of establishments are there is because as a community, me personally, I'm tired of seeing fast food.
Who's
This is
speaker?
Beatrice Cornell. I'm a board member. I agree that I'm exhausted of seeing fast food restaurants that, when we talk about health disparities, affect the health of the people in our community. I would like to see a more elevated type of establishment wherever possible. So as a board, I do agree with Anthony that we do need to question what kind of establishments are coming there and coming there for the long run and the long term. And if there's any way as a board that we can intercept and decide what kind of establishments we want there, now's the time to do it.
Well, you can recommend what type of establishment it is. They're not bound by that. You can recommend it because you can't force a person to take a loss on an empty.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that person. I really don't care about that person. I care about the community right now. So you sounding like you working for them, and I don't mean to be disrespectful.
I'm not working for them. I've dealt with this. I've dealt with the land use, Anthony. I dealt with the land use for over 30 years.
I'm just telling you about stuff that's been going on in the community. You could talk about the laws and all that. I'm telling you about people being uncomfortable, like the sister just said, as far as the stuff that's coming in the community. Like, I understand the laws and all this, but we need to be getting together and switching some stuff up because the same stuff keep coming in our community and the same stuff keep happening. They're making promises and this, and then we have to, boycott them? We should be able to have something where if it's a certain amount of time and we don't agree that they're there, we need to get them up out of there. Why people got to boycott them and all that? Come on, man.
And
Anthony,
I think having the suggestions, at this point, this is where you put the suggestions to the people who own the lots and the variances. You say, we understand you need to find tenants, and that's fine, but this is what we would like to see in our community. If you could work with us, and that's the whole point of working together. It's to tell them what we need and for them to try to at least put their own way out to try to get what they need. People shouldn't take a loss on property because, as we know, money rules the world, unfortunately. But if we're able to work with them and they are saying, okay, these are the type of businesses that are coming to us, which of these businesses do you think is best for the community? If they could put out surveys, if they can put out something for the community board to give to the community to say but that's how we work. But we can't tell them, we can't dictate to them to tell us who's coming and whether or not they can come, because at the end of the day, they still have their own things that they have to do and their own money that they need to make, and they need to still bring some type of income into the community, whether or not we like the business or whatever it is. Even if it's a McDonald's, the McDonald's is still going to employ 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So if it's going to help the community in some way for us in the moment, maybe we don't need it, but if it helps some way, then we can't just tell them no. It'd be a difference if they're trying to bring like a sugar daddy club. That don't help nobody,
I agree. We need to think of the big picture.
Swear, can I say something? I Miss Weird, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I think that I understand it might not be the idea of having yet another fast food restaurant might not be the most desirable, but I say that over a vacancy or an empty space is better, to at least maybe, like Ms. Ware said, to have the young people have a chance at employment. So it might be the most desirable right now. It might not be the most desirable. Oh, wait, I heard you. Can you just... Might not be the most desirable, but it would be a better option over what could possibly be if we didn't do anything. So
can I jump in for ownership? I really appreciate all of this feedback, and frankly, we have an empty space to fill. So if we can work with you all, if you have any business owners or groups that you think would be good tenants for us, we were all open. We're trying to fill this vacancy, and we want to bring someone who's going to be with us, paying us rent for the long term. And this was a sit-down restaurant we were speaking with, not necessarily fast food, but that deal is dead. So we're happy to work with you. We certainly hear you, and we want to be your partner through this and figure it all out together.
And if there's a way for small businesses or at least other restaurants or other establishments that are in our community board who are looking to expand can reach out to you and give their own proposal on how and get more information from you, that would be helpful for us, because at least we can provide them with that opportunity, because sometimes they just need the opportunity to grow because they want to.
Yeah, certainly. My contact information, I'll provide it to the community board. I think you have it in our website. We have a leasing information. Definitely want to blast it out there and make sure everyone, it's in front of everybody.
Now, can I ask one more question? Hello?
Yes, certainly.
Can I ask one more question? One more question that's really a big concern for me. The community benefits, are we talking about that now, or we got to wait for 5 BSAs and 25 variances? Like when are we going to be talking about the community benefits? And the person that comes in committing to the community benefits, like those jobs that we're talking about, like somebody from the community working where they live at. Like when are we going to be having that written on stone? When are we going to have that written down?
Well, I think the community benefits are multiple. We have a vacant store at our shopping center. So the
once
first
the store's not vacant, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when somebody comes in. Like when are we going to be talking about the community benefits? Like,
of course, sure.
That's very important.
We own the building. We cannot control who comes to us and says, "Hey, I want to rent your space." We're trying to cast a wide net. We're trying to fill that. But the group that comes, we want them to stay there for the long term, to invest money in building out a nice store, and to employ people who work in the community and provide a service for the community. And that's all that we can do as a landlord. Do our part to bring someone who's going to be a good store that you all will enjoy, and will employ people who are local and, serve everyone who lives around there.
When are we gonna find out the community benefits? That's what I like to know. Like once the store gets set up there, like how do we know the benefits that the community is going to have? Like, I understand that you could only get your tenants to come in and tell them this and that. When are you going to be talking about the community benefits to your tenants?
Hi, Anthony. How you doing? This is Dr. Burke. Let me jump in, because I think I get what you're trying to say. So and it's not like I'm working with them, but I think what I just heard, this may answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
That they're not going to know who, because as landlords, they can't tell people who to hire. My suggestion is that we, as a board, what we can suggest to them is if they come to us, maybe we can give them some resources so that they can hire people from the community, Anthony. But I don't think that they can provide a direct answer to your question. But that's incumbent upon us. So if we work with them, then that'll be up to you, me, and everybody on this committee and everybody on the board to give them, have a job fair. There's no reason why we at the community board can't have a job fair for kids. You see what I'm saying? And that way, I think that can answer your question a little bit better.
Okay, that's definitely great. They just sound a little confused to me, and I just want to be clear with community needs some benefits out of all of this.
No, agreed. So I'm going to ask Mr. Singh to take this over because Mr. Singh can see what's going on. And, not that Mr. Stricker can't, but Mr. Singh could actually see everybody. So we need a little bit more order. So.
I mean, and if you guys need me to ride to the site, take pictures, and whatever it is, I'll be that vessel right there. That's what
I know you will. I know you will.
I will go to the site. I will check everything that you want me to check.
Yeah.
I'm committing to that right here on this telephone.
Oh, I know that, because you that dude, Anthony. That's what we appreciate you. Attorney Singh?
Really appreciate that.
I know everybody running in COVID. I'll put my mask on, my ski mask and everything, and I'll be there in front of the job. So,
excellent. So why don't we move to the second item on the agenda? That's 2875 Hudson Avenue.
Singh, first we have to close this meeting before we go to the second agenda. We have to close the hearing we just had
Okay.
on the first. All right? So I need a motion to be made by somebody to close the hearing we're having now.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to close it, Sydney Blair.
Well,
Second?
Hold on one sec. Hold on.
Okay, good.
Dr. Burke, correct me if I'm wrong. Looking at the committee assignments, we're missing 4 board members.
No, we're missing 3. We're missing Mr. Lanzano, we're missing Judith Benitez, and we're missing Keisha Laga Martin.
Ortiz is no longer on this committee?
I didn't
Carla
notice she
Bassati?
was. Was that? No, Carla Bassati's on.
Oh, she's on this call?
She was.
Yeah, she's quiet. She don't feel well.
Yeah, about to say, I thought she was here.
Yes, but I'm here and I have opinions. Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought she was here. So, yeah. Everybody on the committee is there, with the exception of, as I said, Ms. Ortiz, Mr. Lanzano, and Mrs. Keisha Martin.
All right.
All right, so I need a motion to close the meeting. Close the
The
hearing.
motion was moved by Sydney Blair. We need someone to second.
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 John Isaac.
Who was the second again? I'm sorry.
Anthony Reed.
Oh, okay, Anthony. Thank you. Okay, just to tell the people from the shopping center, we will get back to you. We're going to take a vote after the complete meeting is over with all 3 hearings that we have to have, and then the board will take a vote individually. The land use committee will take a vote individually on each of the 3, and we will let you know what our decisions are. You may say you want to say and listen. That's fine. So, but that's up to you guys. I want to thank you.
I think the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why would you?
Okay, let's go to the second one.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go with the storage facility. Hello, anybody from the storage facility here?
Yes, thank you. Brett Nelson here, legal counsel for Extra Space. I very much appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening. Mr. Torres invited me onto this call. I had spoken to him in the last week or 2 about the storage facility. We find ourselves in pretty much the same position as our neighbors, Arcadia, where we have a variance on our use that will expire in July of this year of 2021. And we will be taking the steps in the next couple of weeks to submit an application to extend that variance. As mentioned by Arcadia, they have some reservations about the term of the variance. Extra Space would join in the hope that maybe we could get a perpetual variance, but we do not have the same concerns that they do as far as leasing goes. Our concern is just simply from a use perspective. As a business owner with an investment in the community and in the city, putting substantial dollars, it would be frustrating to see that use not be extended. However, we understand that the community board and the BSA's right to hold us to a limit, and we will do what we need to there. As far as my understanding goes, as we begin this application process, it sounds like there are 3 issues. Number 1 is Arno Avenue and what happens with the street completion. As discussed in the previous meeting, it's our understanding that Extra Space does not have any use of that unfinished street location, and that there is not a requirement for Extra Space to finish it. If somebody knows differently, please correct me. The second issue is the sidewalk, which it appears in an old development, some documentation. I believe that there was a plan once Grace Avenue was finished that a sidewalk may need to put in. Like Arcadia Extra Space is willing to finish a sidewalk along our building and our side, and we're willing to coordinate with Arcadia to do so. And then, as I pointed out, the third issue is really just the variance and the expiration that is approaching, and Extra Space's desire to continue to operate and provide a service of self-storage to community members and the local community there. And we hope that we can be a good neighbor, keep a nice, clean property, and continue to do business in that location. Yes, Mr. Torres.
So appreciate what you said in regards to Arno Avenue. My only question would be, if DOT builds the fence, and in the future at some point they do build the street out, I guess maybe this is a question for DOT. Is the expectation that DOT would also build out the sidewalk, or would then Extra Space have to come back and build the sidewalk on that?
Keith?
Did you get that, Keith?
Yeah, I heard you. Hey, Keith Kalb. So if in the future the city finds funds to build the roadway, we would build the sidewalk adjacent to the roadway, and whoever the property owner was to that roadway would be sent a bill for it. But we wouldn't force them to build it unless the roadway was opened.
Okay.
Or they were doing a new development. Or if they did an alteration to their build this pavement plan, which clearly they're not going to do, unless the building was being renovated to co-ops or into some other use, we wouldn't force them to do it.
Okay. So when you put up the fence, your fence line is going to go adjacent to the party wall of their building.
I don't know that yet. We'd have to do a survey. I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I don't know that yet. I don't know where the fence. I couldn't even possibly begin to speculate where the fence would go.
All right.
We could in fact just put up a guardrail so that the roadway is closed off, and then worry about a fence at a later time. Or if there's I know there are some fences already up in the area. We could just match up whatever fences are already there. I don't know.
You're correct.
That's down the road a bit.
Okay.
You know, we'd have to figure that all out.
All right.
But I would think a guardrail is more, it would be easier to put up, and also a fence, they can cut the fence and, make an entrance into where the guardrail, they have to rip the guardrail out. I think the guardrail is a better answer for the time being until the DOT decides or the city decides they have money to make it a through street with sidewalks. Guardrail is more of a deterrent than a fence. You can cut any fence you want.
And it actually makes maintenance easier.
Yes. So, Keith, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
If you guys put a drive rail in, not a drive rail, guardrail in there, and the street bed is still city-owned property, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if somebody dumps something there, because I almost can see visibility of becoming a sort of a dumping site, is sanitation responsible for cleaning that out, since it is a city street?
That would be correct. Yes.
Okay, that's all I.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's why I mentioned the difference between like a fence and a guardrail. If we have a fence around it, we need to have a gate. Gate needs keys. Then we have
Yeah.
becomes more complicated. Guardrail is much easier. You can kind of walk around and just remove where if need be.
My personal feeling is a guardrail is stronger deterrent from getting into the street. But that being said, does anybody have any other questions for the storage facility? Michael, anybody?
No, I don't have any, Mr. Stricker. I guess this for me is a lot cleaner than the first group, Arcadia. So I don't have any concerns or questions.
And as Mr. Nelson stated, that we don't have this application yet, so we're still waiting.
Yeah, actually, we can't vote on approving it because they haven't given it to us yet. But
That's
at least we know where we stand.
Yeah.
And if anybody had any doubts, I would want questions asked now rather than later. Being none, I want to thank the storage people for extra storage for coming out tonight. And I appreciate your time. And we'll be looking forward to your application so we can respond.
Thank you for having me on tonight, and we will prepare that and get that submitted in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Okay, saying let's go with the third one, which is Pear Tree Avenue, the storage facility and the catering hall. Are the folks here? Is anybody here from there?
Yes, we are. We got the whole applicant team on, ready to discuss and answer questions.
Okay, so what kind of proposal did you come back with?
So, I think I'd have Amanda Iannotti from my office just if she can share her screen and throw up some plans and materials. We just limited it to 6 pieces of paper, so we can go through it right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Chair and committee members. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel. I'm with Dino Tomasetti and Thomas Adanito from Storage Fox, and who are the applicants at 3536 Pear Tree. So you may remember on December 14th, which is the last time we were before the committee, this application was for a special permit which would allow self-storage at the site. And at the time we proposed self-storage and a catering facility. So just to recap, this is a 38,000 square foot site, and we're not here for the bulk of the building. You can put 76,000 square foot building here as of right. You just go to DOB and file for those plans. What we're here for is the use. So city planning and the city now makes you go for a special permit if you'd like to use the property for self-storage. You know, way back when the application started and we had spoken to the then council member, Andy King, the discussion was that the area needed a banquet hall. And so we came to the community board on December 14th with a proposal that allowed for a 56,000 square foot self-storage facility and a 21,000 square foot catering facility with the capacity for 700 guests and 100 parking spaces. We showed up at the community board after some conversation. There was a determination that there was a better use for this property than a catering facility. People were very concerned with the catering facility, with potential traffic caused by the site. They cited other areas where people were able to go to for catering events. And so at the time, there were 2 suggestions made at the committee. One of them was, well, can't you change the catering facility use to provide for, say, smaller industrial spaces, kind of like industrial suites? And so before you see plans, which on pages 3 and 4 of the plans present the Pear Tree Industrial Park, which, if you take a look at the layout and the floor plans, allows for division of this space, roughly 16,000 square feet, into 6 individual light manufacturing suites, each of about 2,500 square feet plus. And so they've got great street access. They allow for essentially local fabricators, businesses to take 1 to 2 to 6 of the spaces, and would allow for them to basically locate at the site and in kind of like this suite office concept, have great access, get to work here, use here, and have great street access and all that. So that was the first idea. The second idea that was discussed at the community board was, what about potentially allowing for office suites? So on pages 5 and 6 of the plans, you have the Pear Tree professional suites. And as you can see from the site plan here, you now take those 15,600 square feet of industrial suites and you make them office suites. There's roughly 12 suites. Each of them would be roughly 1,250 to 1,300 square feet. They'd be available to local professionals. You drive in, there's parking, you work for the day, and it's like it's a nice amenity to allow people, local business people, to have office space in the area. So in summary, we listened to the committee. We heard that maybe a 700-person catering facility was not the right thing. The So now we have these two options, which frankly, we'd like to throw it to the committee and the community board to see what they'd like. As an additional benefit to this, the building was formerly 59 feet tall. And because of the change in uses, we were allowed to and able to take down the height by about 4 or 5 feet. So we now have a 55-foot tall building. The traffic and parking is not as much of an issue. And the architects are here on the phone. They can demonstrate how the reconfiguration of the site allows for smoother traffic and cars to go in and out of the facility and through the street system. So frankly, we think that this is a win-win. We're happy to talk to the community, see how you guys feel about this, and answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for the gentleman?
What would be the rent for the professional suites or the other industrial space for community people or anyone that may want to rent out that space? What is the leasing going to be? Is the leasing going to be based off of 2 years, 5 years, 7 years? How are you going to do that to ensure that there's always going to be somebody there and you guys always get rent for that space?
Questions. I'm going to defer to Dino and Tommy, who can probably answer the operational questions.
Hi, Dino Tomasetti here. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and to hear us out. So the first question was, how much rent would it be for, I guess for both, for the warehouse space, we would be looking for like a $10 a square foot rent number in that ballpark. For the professional suites, probably a little bit higher than that, but not much. And again, we were interested in also sort of extending a discount or a concession to local businesses. So we want to create something here that is an actual benefit to the community. So we want to facilitate local businesses coming here. So we're looking at the idea of rent concessions for local businesses as well.
Any other questions?
Dr. Burke has a question.
Yeah, actually, I have several. So I guess the first goes to you, George, and I'm asking you this so that you can kind of sort of set the tone for some of the questions that I'm going to ask. George, I was trying to do some homework, but I think to make certain that my questions are going to be proposed to ask, what is considered as of right? If I'm not mistaken, this is an M21 district, correct?
John, what is the zoning over there?
I think it's
right. So this is an M21 district.
Okay, this is M21. Okay. So what is, and this is to my district manager first, what is permitted for this particular district, M21? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because I was trying to do so. I was trying to look and see if some of these things were as of right. And I guess
so Richard, when he was Richard, right? LaBelle?
Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. So when he was talking, he was saying that there are many uses that are as of right. The only reason that they're here is because of the storage facility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because if I remember correctly, it's group. I think I was looking at the zoning ordinances group anyway from group 5 to group 16 that would be considered as of right, and that's why I was trying to do some homework on that. So now the questions that I have that sets up the questions I have for anybody from the team from Pear Tree that wants to answer them. So I'm looking at the plans originally. So the plans were originally dated February of 2018, February 20th of 2018 to be exact. And then they were modified on the 28th. And then they were modified again on the April the 25th of 2018. And then of course, the most recent revisions, which I want to say is dated 1/12 prior to that, which of course we appreciate you coming to the board. Let me just say that first and foremost, and I'm Dr. Michael Burke, Chair of Community Board 12. So I'm very appreciative of you guys coming back to us. So with that being said, you'd mentioned earlier that you reached out to former Councilman King. Based on the dates that I'm seeing on the actual blueprint, when did you guys first approach Councilman King? And let me just ask a second question as a follow-up. When did he give you his blessing that your original idea was fine.
Yeah, actually, Dr. Burke, with regards to the history in our correspondence and discussions with Andy King, Musa Moore is on the phone with us. He was our government relations and is our government relations consultant. We have the benefit of having him at the meeting. Musa, can you just recap us as far as the discussions with Andy King? I know you were most familiar with talking to his office.
Well, good evening, everyone. Dr. Burke, how are you today?
Oh, fantastic. And yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you.
Early on, I don't have the exact dates in front of me when I approached Councilman King and discussed the whole idea of this storage facility. We went back and forth with different ideas, different concepts, and he came up with the idea. He said, one thing that we can use here would be a catering facility. Taking that under consideration, we went forward and designed what was shown earlier with the catering facility, and we came forward to the board. I can't give the exact dates of when, but we was a number of conversations that I had with the councilman, and we took
Musa,
his.
I have the dates if that helps the board.
If you have the dates, that'd be wonderful.
I think you had multiple conversations, but our first meeting was held in June of 2018. We also met again in September of 2018.
Have you guys met with Councilmember Riley now? I understand that you guys met with King, but have you even met with Councilmember Riley now, who is actually now the new council member for the area?
And I know the councilman actually personally. We haven't met with him yet. I know he was just elected in December, and that's somebody who definitely we're going to sit down and talk with. But we definitely want to come back to the board after we had our initial conversation and we talked about the different options that we could explore, and that's the first thing we did. And Councilman Riley, I'll be calling him to set up a meeting.
Well, let me follow up because I didn't finish answering my questions, and again, it wasn't your fault. So let me go back. So I'm looking at your plans again, and I tried to study your blueprints. So as it pertains to the industrial park blueprints, to me, it looks like the majority of the footprint is still storage, and particularly on the second and third floors. And I'm imagining that's subterranean. So in my opinion, I really didn't see any changes that you really made. So can you explain that? And and I guess in the second part of this question is, what would be the uses of your subterranean cellar that you have on your plan?
Yes, this is Tom Cusinelli, architect. We based space that's allocated catering hall, with the exception of the areas that are being utilized for kitchens and additional attendant parking, which was up on another level. We took and allocated it for the light industrial and or we squared off the space, drew a line down past the area that's required for the self-storage facility and allocated the space tree for the industrial came out to be a little bit over 15,059 net square footage. That we had a large ramp that was going up into a now was not necessary, and we felt by moving the either use the industrial or the office space further down, particularly for the industrial uses, that loading and unloading access to their suites there would be much down Pear Tree. And so basically we took a line, less than half to the self-storage based on, again, the location of the loading berths, and the rest went to the industrial and or office space. The cellar space we have allocated for self-storage use.
When you say self-storage, you're still talking about, so I mean, because the way I look at the blueprints, and tell me if I'm wrong, the majority of the place is still going to be used for self-storage. Is that correct?
We have, yes, sir. You know, floor area wise, there's 5,000 allocated for self-storage. 20,361 would be for either the industrial and or office use.
Okay, right. So that's what I'm saying, because those are the plans that I was looking at, you know, as well as what you submitted. I'm like, wait a minute, this to me still seems like it's more self-storage than it is office. Which, first of all, I appreciate that, because here's why I'm asking that. I guess I was disappointed when I looked at the plans again, because to me, while I appreciate the alterations that were made, I didn't think they went far enough, and I guess that's why I was asking our district manager what was as of right, because I'm thinking this: if you have that much space, and again, I can't tell you what to do, but if, for instance, if you had the hydroponics bay, right? So I think Ms. Coronel mentioned this earlier when we were speaking to the Arcadia group, that one of the problems that we have here in the Bronx, in particular this neck of the Bronx, or this area, of course, is we have huge health disparities. So if you were to take that space and you would lease it to a company that is that specializes in hydroponics, where you can actually grow fresh vegetables and you can do it in a carbon neutral way, you would generate a hell of a lot of income. You know what I mean? If you were to do something like that, and it would be a win for you because you'd make money, it'd be a win for us because then, of course, we could locally source our fruits and vegetables, and of course, we would win and then alleviate some of the health disparities. Another thing that'd be a huge win for you, I'm thinking, with that amount of space, and again, because I'm a huge Star Trek fan, of course, is if you were to set up some sort of a small studio. You know what I mean? A small TV production studio. As our district manager can attest to, we have several TV productions that occur right in our Ward 12. If you were to set up some of that space for TV production, then you'd get a hell of a lot of money, A, and then B, of course, the money that you would give us in taxes, all your tax breaks. And then not only that, jobs that would be created in those particular industries. So that's why I said I was disappointed to see, still, even though you did just make improvements, I would like to have seen, you know, something along those ideas, something along those lines, because I still see more store space than I see office space. And that's something that I'm throwing out there, or maybe even a 3D printing lab or something like that, where it'll be a win for everybody. So that's where my mind was going, and that's what my thought processes were. So,
Doctor, are you referring to the industrial space for one of the alternate uses?
I'm looking at your plans right now. So I'm looking at, if I was to go to your plans, I know that Ms. Ionetti put some plans up. So I'm looking at the plans that I have that you guys submitted. I was looking on pages. I'm gonna tell you where I'm looking exactly. I'm looking at your industrial plans first. I am on page. Okay, I'm on page 3. Okay. And on page 3, you have everything pretty much laid out on page 3 from your diagram on Petrie Avenue, and the numbers that you just quoted with your floor area breakdown. That's the page I'm looking at. So page 3 on your design drawings for the industrial. For those of you that can't see what I'm talking about, the diagram for the office space is just the same, and it was sent out via George and Ursula to the I want to say to the entire board. I know it was sent out to members of the land use committee, but I want to say it was sent out to the entire board. So if you don't have it, you should be able to follow along with me and see what I'm talking about. So that's where I'm at.
Yes.
Okay, so it's up on the screen. Okay, great. So somebody's got it up on the screen.
Yeah. So that drawing is the drawing that shows the self-storage and the industrial spaces to the right, correct?
That's correct, right.
Okay. So, and you know, we thought we answered some of the concerns with the obviously the not very popular catering hall use, and listening to people saying that, it wasn't an area where people would want to go out to eat and visit and so on. And we sort of came up with these possible uses, but any use that would be permitted in that zoning district, I'm sure we would certainly be amenable to listening to.
Yeah, but think about what I suggested. I think that in particular the hydroponics idea, and again, I can't tell you what to do. These are just suggestions, and I think if you heard my colleague Anthony Reed speaking to the first group from Arcadia, we were talking about certain issues that affect the community. We appreciate. First of all, I'm going to say I'm thoroughly happy that you guys came back with an improvement. All I'm saying is that can we do, especially when you speak with Councilman Riley, because the one thing I can say about him, and I'm sure the district manager can agree to this, is that he has been inclusive as to including myself and others, and I'm sure George as well, on his calls on his governance so far. But I think the thing is that I'm thinking about is there's a storage facility right in front of you, and there's one on the other side of you. And so what I'm thinking is if you were to do something like what I guess I just suggested, although we appreciate the improvements, that would be unique. That would set you apart. You would be a shining star in this community. That's what I'm saying. And I want you to not be ordinary, but I want you to be extraordinary. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure that your entire leadership team would agree with me in my assessment of that.
Yeah, Dr. Burke, thank you again for the comments. I think the goal here, and Dino can probably speak to this better than I, but they have a core business which involves self-storage. And I think we're really happy that we've gone in the right direction, because I think we all agreed that the catering facility was not the way to go. In the 15 to 16,000 square feet that we're allocated to catering and is now allocated to light industrial or office, an agricultural use without nuisance is a use group 17 permitted in an M2. A movie studio is a use group 10 permitted in an M2. I think Dino would be anxious, so to speak, to get a use like that, which essentially would take that whole space, contiguous space, and use it. I think the only issue for us is just to say movie studio and not know whether or not you're going to get a movie studio is one thing. I think the purpose for us to make it like a suite kind of thing was because we wanted the flexibility to have, if somebody wanted to come in and take 1, 2, the entire space, they could take it. So I appreciate the ideas. Dino, I know you can speak for yourself, but all these things, they could definitely use the entirety of the space. There's nothing that would be preventing it.
Yeah, certainly, Richard, to add on to what you're saying, certainly there's a degree of modularity with the light industrial space where, the walls are designed to be, removable, so we could open it up to one use if we could find the right use, like you said, a movie studio or some agricultural use like that. The issue comes sometimes down to economics too, though. The storage facility is what's going to ultimately pay the bills there. And, that's what's going to enable us to be able to build this building and to make it work. We need a certain amount of space for storage. We need the ground floor loading area. We need the retail store down on the corner there. And, we need a certain square footage to where economically it makes sense. If you start to go below that, then you would really have to substitute it with a use that was paying a high enough rent to sort of cover the difference in the economics there. And I'm just not familiar enough, to know. Certainly, as Richard pointed out, if a movie studio came to me and said, I want 20,000 additional square feet in your building in addition to what's already there, and I'm going to pay X, and X works, and it's a good number and it's a good deal, then, we would be happy to make that change. We could even make that change on the fly, because self-storage is is a modular use. We are building an open, we're basically building an open span that can be adapted at any time. It's an adaptable use, so storage can be adapted to other uses. So certainly, yes. If we could find that tenant, that use that that would really excite the community, and it meant giving up some storage to do that, in addition to what we've sort of given up already, is certainly something we would be willing to consider. But absent of having that tenant in my hands, right, in our hands here, it's very hard for us to say, yeah, we're going to set aside a certain additional square footage so that we can, do that. And I just want to point one thing out is before this, the special permit regulation was voted in a couple of years ago, which happened to be right around the time when we purchased the property. The IBZ zoning was going to require that approximately 50% of your ground floor was set aside for industrial use. And our original design, even before we spoke to Mr. King, was actually just that. It was a warehouse space, approximately 50% of the ground floor, and then the storage in the rest of the building. So we really feel like we're going back to that concept, and it makes a lot of sense in the area. And we were always happy to do that. I think that Mr. King kind of got us off on a wrong tangent there, and put us down a road that we probably shouldn't have gone down. But I think we're back to something that, where we are providing something that, will create jobs for the community, but it'll also enable us to build a storage facility that's of the requirement that we need economically to pay the bills and keep the facility operating, pay for the construction and pay for the land and everything else. And we really do need, there's a certain critical mass or critical size that you really need before it starts to not make sense anymore. And that's what we're kind of struggling with here.
And that's agreed. Let me just say that I know Mr. Jason Cohen is here observing us, and he's, with the Bronx Times. And I think what I'm looking at, because, he wrote an article on our last land use committee meeting, and some of the committee members have seen the article. This is positive press. The fact that you are here with us, that we're having this conversation, that was reviewed, that was lauded very, very favorably for the residents of the Bronx. And so the fact that you are here again, this speaks wonders. And as I said before, I'm happy. I'm sure that the chair and vice chair of the land use committee, as well as the board members that are here, are happy. So I'm going to shut up at this point and let anybody else ask their questions. But the fact that you're here, I'm hoping that, again, we totally understand where you're coming from. I think that we probably need to do some homework on our end to see if we can get that to happen. And I know that I have talented board members that will be able to help get that to happen and get you an answer to see whether or not it would be, feasible. So that's it. I'm done, board.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Good questions there, Michael. This is Carl Strick. I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee. Just a recommendation to you guys in the future, before you go to any local official, elected official, you should come to the community board to see what they need. Because, as you said, you were sent down the wrong track. And that probably wouldn't have happened if you would have came to the board first and said, look, we acquired this property. What does the community need? And I think you will be a lot further ahead now and going through all these meetings. I do appreciate it that you did come back a second time with some changes made. And I'm going to tell you, a movie studio is not a bad idea, because we have a lot of TV shows that film a day or 2 or 3 up in the Bronx, and I'm sure, and they don't have no studio right now in the Bronx. Years ago, we used to have 8 studios in the Bronx. That's before everybody moved to Hollywood. But a film studio would definitely work here. And I would recommend that you contact the mayor's office of film and see what the TV people are looking for, So maybe you can provide it to them. Because she would have a handle on everything that's going on, because she signs all the permits for films in the city. And you have a lot of shows that shoot in the city now. Many, many shows that are shooting in the city. So I think, and as far as the agricultural use, that's fantastic, because we do need healthy foods in this community. And in fact, we're looking at another site to see if we can set up a farmer's market, which is quite complicated, but we will look to see if we can get that done. So if you had the agriculture facility there, you go right down to the site we're looking for to sell farm fresh vegetables. So I would take a good hard look at what the chairman of the board said, because the two ideas he had are exceptional. And I have to tell you again, I am so against storage facilities, you cannot believe. But I won't let that hold me back. If the land use committee wants to approve a storage facility, I would go along with them. I might vote against it, but when the count comes down, if it's 9-2, well, people with 9 wins. But I would definitely look at what the chairman of the Community Board 12 said to you, because those are two important industries that we really could use in the Bronx. And I thank you again for coming out and trying to answer our requirements and our needs. I think you guys did a good job, but I still think you have a little more work to do.
Thank you.
I had a question, and I think John Isaac had a question. Go ahead, John.
I agree. I totally agree with Dr. Burke. We don't need more storage facilities over there. I remember going to Home Depot. I was like, were we unjust with these developers? And I was coming back from Home Depot in 95. And I was like, oh my God. As you come off of the exit, you could see like all these storage facilities within your view, like 3 or 4 of them. Like, it don't make any sense for the storage facility. I love the light industry perspective that you guys were going in. And I think we should stay in that area, because that area gears for what's going on. Look at what's around the site. You have a concrete plant. You have the metal, the car recycling places. You have the iron workers. You have a spring guy, mechanic shops. These are the things that these are the things that we should try to stay in. I understand the money is an issue, but we just don't need any more storage. We need to turn the Rubik's Cube some more and figure out what else we could use on that site other than storage.
If I could just address that for a second. So this building can be built to 78,000 square feet. If you were to put in 78,000 square feet of hydroponic farms, of office suites, etc., you could do that as a right. What Dino and Tommy are trying to do is basically build a new building here. And when we have to look at these applications, city planning asks us, what are the uses in the area of the building? How many new buildings have been built in the last 5, 10, 20 years? And the truth of the matter is that in this area, there are a lot of auto-related uses. You go north of Boston Road, and you get a lot of auto-related, and there's the DSNY garage. There's some tough M3, which is across the street from us, is the most intensive manufacturing district in the city. You could, but as of right, go into the Department of Buildings in that M3, and you could put the most noxious uses in the city can go there. So, Dino and Tommy looked at the site. It's a challenge. They want to put in a new building. They want to put in a productive building. I think, if I can get what Dr. Burke said correctly, it's that the idea of investing here and putting in a new building here is desirable. And it's just a matter of making sure that everyone knows that there's going to be certain uses here that are preferable to other uses for additional space. the issue for Dino and Tommy is that they eventually have to have a special permit approved in order to put any self-storage here. You could put as much of these other uses as you want, but if you want to do 1 square foot of self-storage, you need the special permit. So the special permit, as Dino said, is going to create, 55,000 square feet of self-storage with the remainder to go to these other uses. In the event that another user comes in and says, we'd like more space, we're absolutely able to consider that, because it's a lot easier at city planning to say, amend our special permit to go down. We now need less self-storage than it is to say we need more. Once you go in and ask for 1 more square foot, you essentially end up with a new special permit. If you reduce your square footage for self-storage, you're able to do that far more easily. So we're hearing these suggestions. They're great suggestions. I think we're all going in the right direction. I love what Dr. Burke said about the fact that this is newsworthy and we've got, people here who are interested in it. I think, speaking on behalf of Dino, I think we appreciate the suggestions, but there is like that aspect of it where in order to fund the building and to make this a productive building, we need to have, to start somewhere, and that somewhere right now would be to allow for the special permit.
I had a question. You gave us 2 different proposals. One was a professional space, the other was an industrial space. Can you just tell us the types of uses that would be permissible if you did it in an industrial space? For example, could those spaces be used as artist loft and stuff like that? Or in a professional space, is that going to be like an incubator where you're sharing a common conference room or something like to that effect?
Yeah, I'll start, and maybe Victor, our project architect, and Tom can talk as well. So, the uses are going to be designated. There'll be a certificate of occupancy, and the uses will be designated on the C of O. So the use group 6 office space was intended to be for professional offices. So really, it's like runs the gamut. You can do, professional office, you can do medical office, accounting, attorney, architect, tech office, whatever you want to do can be located in a use group 6 office. The manufacturing space and the industrial suites would probably be, I imagine, use group 16 light manufacturing. So right now, one of the hot words in city planning is maker space, where people come in, they fabricate, they create, they do food product, they do odds and ends, etc. So I think that an artist loft, as far as any kind of like living space, would not work. But I think artist fabrication, metalwork, any kind of that, I think that works as a use group 17 and would be allowed in the space. Victor, I don't know if you have any contrary opinion.
No, that's about right. Yeah, that would work in either of the options. Yes.
Is there any other questions from the board, please? Any other questions? Being none, I'd like a motion to close the hearing. Can I have a motion to close the hearing?
I motion to close the hearing.
I second, Harry.
Okay, Harry, thank you. Thank you for the
Who made
motion.
the motion? Who made the first motion?
I think it was Sydney.
Was it Sydney or Nicole? Both of them have soft voices. I couldn't hear. Who was it?
It was Nicole.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so all in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, hearing officially closed. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. We appreciate your efforts on the behalf of the community. But I think there might be a little more work that has to be done, but we'll discuss that now. Coming up, we're going to take the vote on the 2 issues tonight. Thank you so much again.
So, Mr. Stricker, you need the committee to stay on, but everybody else to leave, right?
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, committee members stay. Everybody else should leave.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Can I ask why we're asking the community to leave when we're going to have a vote?
We didn't ask the community, we asked everybody. The land use committee is gonna vote.
Yes, but this is an open meeting. People are allowed to stay right till the very end. You're asking people to leave.
First of all, I was asking the participants to leave.
But why? That's my question.
I think, and help me out. So I think if you're going to debate something, right? I don't like, at least me, I don't like to have people that I'm debating about hearing what we have to say. And I guess I use my fraternity as a classic example. I don't want people to know what the brothers are saying about them before we vote yes or no. You know what I mean? Now, I know that this is different, but I think that, we've already, and I see Ursula's got her hand up, but, if there's something that's saying that we need to have them, great. I don't think that there is, but then again, I could be wrong. And again, I'm not infallible, so I don't know. So, Ursula, what's your question?
So you cannot do that. The only time you can tell everybody to leave if you're going to discuss personnel issues.
Okay.
It's open to everybody. The only time you can do that is you have to go into executive session and you only discussing personnel issue. Anything that anybody else can stay and listen for as long as they want to.
Okay, then I clearly stand corrected, and I think you do too as well, Mr. Stricker. So we appreciate the point of clarification.
And the only thing I will say too, it's sort of odd, and again, I don't want to be speaking out of school, but usually we take votes right after we have a discussion about something. So if we're discussing Edson Avenue, we take a vote so that the board for board members, the idea is fresh. Waiting until the end of the meeting to have a vote on something, unless somebody's taking meticulous notes, it's going to be really hard to say this is what we're voting on. So generally speaking, we have always voted right after we discuss something. So like whatever it was, 2829 Edson Avenue, we would have taken a vote right after we had the discussion. Then for Pear Tree, which was the last part of the discussion, we would have had a vote now. Again, you can run it whichever way you want, but I'm just saying I think it's a lot cleaner when you're taking votes right after the fact.
I agree.
I agree.
So how do we move forward? Because the group left. Can we vote now, or we have to have them come back? What happened?
Actually, we can't call them back. But the land use committee
I'm
has
still here
to.
from Pear Tree, by the way. I'm still here from Pear Tree. I could have my team come back if that's necessary.
I don't think so. I think we pretty much know what we're talking about, because Pear Tree was the last conversation. The first one was the Arcadia group. The second one was extra space storage, which they haven't.
Well, which we're not taking a vote on because they haven't given us a presentation.
Yeah, they haven't even taken. So technically, it'll only be the first and the third. So that's fine. Like I said, most of us have pretty sharp memories, so we should be good.
Hello.
Yes.
So we'll just know for next time, I take it?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that goes for me too, Mrs. Bond. So yeah, that's fine, because as I said, I know that we do things in the frat one way. So okay, so we are, again, you guys know me. If I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong and keep it moving. So.
This is actually Jessica Rubenstein from Greenberg Charg. I'm still here as well.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Well, George, I think on that issue with the open meetings law is satisfied. We have the representatives here, and we can totally vote on 1 and 3.
Exactly. We vote on 1 and 3. There you go, attorney. That's what we.
Okay. Now, how does the committee want to vote on 1? My personal feeling is that we approve the variance for another 20 years. We're not going beyond 20 years. For another 20 years, as long as they put the sidewalk in on Grace Avenue.
I'm in agreement.
So, Mr. Stricker, how would you enforce that? Would you want a document written first? Because I think you would need that first.
I would want Ms. Rubenstein to make sure that our people from Arcadia send us a letter guaranteeing that they will put a sidewalk and retaining wall in on Grace Avenue if we approve the 20-year extension of their variance.
Well, wait a minute, Mr. Stricker. I'm with you on that. And again, so Attorney Singh, help me on this. So now, the one good thing about, I guess, with the type of training that I have is that you need to put something down in writing first, then make the agreement, right? So if we say we're going to do it and we just have a promise, then that can just go away. So I think it even needs to be something that's.
I'm sorry, Singh.
No, it was me, Mr. Stricker. So what I'm saying is, should we have something in the chat? I would rather let me see what Attorney Singh thinks about this. And then, because I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Stricker. All I'm saying is I think that we need that guarantee.
Well, that's what I just said. We will approve the extension of their variance for 20 more years with their guarantee, and that's what I said, guarantee that they will put the sidewalk in on Grace Avenue and the retaining wall. That was my recommendation.
Or I think what Mr. Stricker meant was that we'll approve the variance for another 20 years on the condition that.
Right. Exactly.
And we put the conditions in.
So, Attorney Singh, should the condition? I guess that's my question. Should the conditions be first, or something? It's something that they could send to you to review right quick, or how would you recommend us going forward with that?
Well, I would defer to George.
I think Ms. Rubenstein, who represents them, can send a letter on a legal paper saying they agree to the board's request to put a sidewalk in on Grace Avenue, and that we will then give them a 3-year variance.
So my my understanding is that we can make the request to the BSA. So we heard from the deputy director of BSA that we would have to write a letter to her stating, the conditions of our approval.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so the question becomes, and I think John can speak to this, and we had 1225 East 233rd Street, which is a gas station right now. I think it's Luke Oil gas station. And they promised to do X, Y, and Z in regards to their facility. They were going to get rid of the flower shop, which I think they did. They were going to get rid of the selling of vehicles, which they have not. And it's pretty bad. Now, they came to us several years after their variance had already expired. And that was my whole conversation with BSA for this. Like, what's the clawback provision in the event that they don't fulfill their promise to build the sidewalk? Do we go back and revisit the variance? And then, because we're writing, no, it's not as clear cut. I mean, I don't know if anybody from BSA is still here, but they have not revisited any of this. I mean, we have other BSAs that I've made complaints about that, the Department of Buildings is the enforcement agency on this issue. They will go out and they will write a violation. For 1225 East 233rd, they don't have a certificate of occupancy. They wrote a violation for it, but there is no clawing back. I mean, that's going to be a gas station for the next 10 years. So, the fear is, they say all the sweet things, we say yes, and then a year from now, there's still no sidewalk. What happens? And that's the fear. I mean, and honestly, I know everybody says that they want to be a good citizen. We had this property was all one property. They cut it up into 3 different properties. So you have the gas station, you have the retail market, and then you have the storage facility. The gas station came to us when it was a Sunoco, and they said that they were going to do X, Y, Z. They were going to paint. They were going to do everything. They didn't do any of it. It changed into a mobile gas station, and with the upgrade to mobile, they made certain provisions. But the stuff that they said that they were going to do with regards to the dumpster, they didn't do. And this is particularly interesting for me because I live here. I live right around the corner from this area. So I see this every single day. I mean, I drove this area every single day for 4 years because my son went to high school right up the block there. So that sidewalk has been a particular concern for me for a very long time, as has Eli Avenue, because Eli Avenue is also an issue with the lack of a sidewalk. So the fear is, how do we revisit this, or what can we put in our conditions that would mandate the sidewalk being built?
Well, is it possible, and this I'm not sure of, if they don't put the sidewalk in, we can revoke their extension of the variance.
Jessica, you're still here. Can I jump in? Mr. Stricker, as much as I love you, you're my guy. I kind of agree. And this, I think George and I are on the same page with this, because I'm like, I want to make certain that the protections are in first, and that's why I asked a counselor saying.
Mike, that's what I brought up. I says, can we put in there, if they don't meet the criteria that we laid down for the permission of the extension of the variance, can we have the variance revoked?
Ms. Rubenstein is still here. Ms. Rubenstein, if you can answer, once the variance is granted, let's say BSA says yes, the sidewalk is not built, what provisions, or can a community board or can BSA even claw back the variance?
Well, okay, let me just backtrack. So the your board, community boards in general, you issue approvals for the application. Then what happens is the BSA looks at your approval. Even if you approve an application, it doesn't mean the BSA is going to approve it. Even if you deny an application, it doesn't mean the BSA is going to deny it. What the BSA does is they take your recommendation into consideration, and they base their determination on that and a lot of other factors, a lot of legal factors that we outline in our application. We would be happy to get you a letter from Acadia stating that they are committed to building the sidewalk. But I think the only thing that community boards can do is approve an application on condition of something. In this case, that the client will build a sidewalk. I don't think there's anything else to be done, because the condition means that the approval no longer exists if we don't follow through with the condition.
Okay, Ms. Rubenstein, I'm sorry. My name is Ms. Baez, and I've been listening to all the information that's been going on. In addition to everything, all the great questions that have been out there, I'd like to ask you a question. Is there a specific time frame that the board can put for instance, with the sidewalk? I understand that some outside factors come into play and, no one has control over, but once that information is out, as in the permits, et cetera, would that also be aligned with the application and with the suggestion according with the variance?
I'm sorry, I think my computer froze. Can you repeat that, please?
So my question is in reference to this variance and application with the sidewalk concern. I'd like to know if the board is allowed to put in a time frame that the BSA, whether they approve it or not, but if they do approve it, if there's a time frame that we can put in for the sidewalk to, actually get done, and both parties will be happy with pro quo. The sidewalk will be done, and also the 20-year variance can move forward.
I'm really sorry. I don't know if it's my connection or if it's the meeting. Can you say that one more time? You kind of, I don't hear you for like half of the time that you're speaking. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Okay.
This is Dan Eggers. I'm Jessica's colleague. I heard the question. So you
Okay.
can. So I was quietly listening this whole time. Very interesting discussion. Good to see you all. So you can have in your recommendation. As Jessica said, it's a recommendation to approve on condition or deny on condition. That's something you do all the time. You can have in your recommendation, whatever that may be, a certain time frame in which you request that the sidewalk be constructed, and that could be something. It's up to the Board of Standards and Appeals that they could incorporate theoretically into their resolution. Ultimately, should the BSA agree to renew the variance.
Right. Hi, Jella from BSA.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. The board can look at your recommendation and adopt those conditions that you put forth if they think it's appropriate into the board's conditions of approval.
Okay, and if that time, let's say hypothetically speaking, in regard to my question, what if it was not met during that time frame? Can we add in a clause of a penalty or anything like that?
Well, the board would consider if the time frame, if they would adopt a time frame as you would specify in your recommendation. It's not guaranteed that they would adopt it. They would have to review everything, the whole application and all the circumstances, but it's possible that they would do it. It's always a possibility. And because they definitely, the board wants to hear, the BSA board commissioners want to hear the community board's position. So it's very possible they could potentially incorporate the time frame. And we do have a compliance officer, and we do sometimes bring back an applicant for a compliance hearing, but we try. So we do that sometimes. It's not, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, both 1, 2, 3 parties for clarifying on that. I appreciate it.
Let me follow up my district manager's question, because I think so. I'm gonna make sure I hear you, because my district manager asked a very good question. So, and I'm looking at something that I just received. So the BSA would be the enforcing agency and not the community board, right? So my district manager asked the question is that if we approve it and it doesn't, we want a condition, and if they choose not to meet it, and he gave excellent examples, who would be the enforcing agency?
This is all very hypothetical. We don't, this hasn't even gone to the first hearing yet, so we don't know exactly what the board is going to decide, and if they would decide to adopt a condition. I just want to make that clear. But potentially, if it was brought to BSA, the fact that the sidewalk wasn't constructed. It is possible, if it were a board condition in the BSA resolution, that the applicant could be brought in for a compliance hearing. Could be brought back into BSA is what I mean.
And who makes that application to bring the applicant back in?
It's a process that we go through. I'm not that familiar with it. Tony, if maybe you could speak to our compliance hearings a little bit. They're not that frequent, but we have brought in an applicant and put them on the hearing calendar. I don't know where Tony is right now, but we have brought in some applicants for compliance.
And let me just add to what Jill is saying as well. And one of the concerns that we have as a community board, it has a little bit of bearing on this. Even if they did bring it back, the Department of Buildings, whenever they issue a violation, unless it's a Class 1 violation, it's really just a violation in paper only. It's not, they don't collect the fee. And unless that applicant comes back for a permit for something else, that fee may never get paid. So, I think a couple of years ago when they were looking at the deficit of the city, I think the Department of Buildings had over $1 billion worth of violations outstanding that were never paid. So, again, the fear is we give them another 20 years, we're going to be sitting on this until 2041 for them to do a sidewalk, which is, it seems just a little thing to ask. I mean, it would almost seem that they would want to build a sidewalk because their customers would walk to the African market or to Pizza Hut, to the check cashing place, or to the Chinese store to get food or whatever. So I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff out there, and that's why I'm happy BSA is here, and that's why we invited them. But I think that we could also have a conversation about these enforcement issues, because I've been looking for clawback provisions within the BSA approval process, and there isn't any. Again, the fear is the BSA might disagree with us and give them the thing without requiring a sidewalk, and then we're left holding the bag again. So, I mean, I know that I guess my final, I'll say this: they have until July when their variance expires, and we've even seen BSA variances go past their thing. There is a penalty to pay, but we could always waive that. I don't know how long a sidewalk takes to build, but I think if they worked their magic, they could get it done before the July, and we could, hold this we can suspend this until then, until the sidewalk is built.
Right.
Yeah, George.
Can I just jump in on that, George? I feel a hell of a lot more comfortable with that than to vote tonight to give, to extend the variance, and then we never get it done, because then there is no accountability. And I think, you and I, in this case, are on the same page. And I hear what Mr. Stricker saying. He's saying the same thing. I think, to me, I would not want to give them my vote tonight. I want to see the sidewalk first. Then, if they build, once they build that, we'd be more than happy to extend their variance only for 20 years. They want us to eliminate it. That's not going to happen. So I think that's what I feel comfortable with. But again, I'm just one person.
Yeah, this is Anthony Reed. It doesn't take that long to do no sidewalk, so don't even let them tell you nothing different.
No, you're absolutely right. A BPP is very easy to file. It's not just the sidewalk, though. It's the retaining wall, which I think has a little more consideration.
Okay.
I would think it would take less than a month to do the retaining wall and the sidewalk, because the length of the property isn't that long.
It's pretty long.
Listen,
I don't know I don't know how to advise you. This has been like this already for 20 years. This was built back in 2000. So, the idea that it would take even longer, up to a year. I agree that a BPP filing with the Department of Transportation and with the Department of Buildings, it really doesn't take that much. If they're sincere about doing it, especially if they do it with Extra Space. Extra Space, I know that they're two separate applications, but Extra Space hasn't even come in with their application. And if they do the work with them, they can split the cost or, proportion it whatever way. Yeah. I think that's where we should go.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let me make a motion right now. Let me make a motion. I think, and this is so. And again, I know since Mr. Strick is the chair, and I guess I'm a quote unquote member, I move that we table this discussion.
I have to take parliamentary. I have to remove my recommendation first, which I do. All right. Now you're free to make your recommendation.
So I move that we table this discussion, at least this is now what, January, right? I move that we table this discussion at least 2 months until March. And that'll give the Arcadia group as well as Extra Space, that should be more than enough time for them to build the sidewalk and do whatever they need to do. So I move that we table this until March and come back and revisit this vote in March regarding this variance.
Do we have a second? Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Now, what I wanted to say, since the construction season starts probably in the middle of March, they should have this ready by the latest April 30th. It shouldn't take more than 6 weeks to do the work.
Well, does somebody want to give an amendment to my motion? Do you want me to amend the motion?
To what?
Because you've already called for the vote. So, and I guess it's already passed.
Right, it did.
So
no, you don't need an amendment. All I say, if they really want to get it done, they can start in the middle of March. It should be done by April 30th, with or without extra storage. But it behooves extra storage to work with them because they can get the job done a lot cheaper, and it'd be a lot better than connecting 2 sidewalks. You have 1 solid sidewalk.
Okay.
So, okay, so we'll postpone our decision until March to see what's going on at the site.
Okay,
Is that
thank
okay
you,
with
Mr.
everybody?
Stricker. No, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Stricker.
You're welcome. And the other, as far as the Pear Tree Avenue, I want to see them come back with more changes. If everybody's in agreement.
We're in agreement. So you need a motion for that too, right?
Oh, I can't make them. Can somebody make a motion?
No, I'm going to say, but I'm just saying either I could or somebody from the committee can make it.
Anybody from the committee want to speak up?
I would like to make a motion. This is John Isaac. I would like to make a motion that we have Pear Tree Development come back to the board with changes to their plans.
Time frame.
Anybody second it?
Hang on for a second. Hang on for a second. What's the time frame, John?
We could give him 2 months.
2 months.
2 months? Okay, so March. So you moved that. So in other words, I think the motion needs to be, we move that we table this vote until March, until Pear Tree comes back with some more plans that will be amenable to what we discussed tonight.
Yes.
Correct.
Take this
Can I
vote.
say something?
Just so we understand. The only reason that they came here is for the storage facility.
Yes.
They don't need your permission for anything else.
That's true.
The idea that they would lessen.
It's the storage facility that we're opposed to start off with.
Well, then that's what I'm saying. If you don't want the storage facility, then just vote for not having the storage facility, because if you keep, they have to pay somebody to keep amending their plans. But the basis of their plan is a storage facility. If you don't want the storage facility, there's no need for them to come before us.
Well, if they would have came to the board first, they would have known that.
Well, we can't blame them for that.
Who they went to first has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
The reason they're before us is because they want a storage facility. If they wanted to build an industrial space that was 6 stories tall, they could do that. They wouldn't need to come to the community board. So they've entertained us. They've come back with 2 separate proposals, but the basis of those proposals is a storage facility. That's what we're voting on.
Right.
Well,
the ability to give them a storage facility. If you don't want the storage facility, because that's what I heard from some board members in the chat as well, then that's the vote. Keep asking them to come back. The basis of their, again, unless Mr. LaBelle says differently, the basis of their application is a storage facility. They want a storage facility.
Well, then we
can ask a question.
We shouldn't waste anybody else's time. Just make a decision.
Yeah.
Chairman, I will say, if we're all in agreement, we don't want the storage facility. So this vote the storage facility down and let them go where they have to go.
Okay.
I need a motion to say that we will not permit a storage facility to be built at the Pear Tree site, which I believe is 3536 Pear Tree Avenue.
All right, you still have a question on the floor, Mr. Stricker.
What's the question?
Oh no, Denise Bond had a question.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
No problem. I would like to see the dialogue that we opened with the developer to continue. So I understand that we don't want the storage facility, but I don't want to shut down the dialogue either, because I think it's good for us to have that type of dialogue so that we can maybe partner with the developer to see what could actually go there. So I don't know how we handle that exactly, but I don't think that we want to just shut down the dialogue is what I'm trying to get at.
I think that's an excellent.
That's a good idea. I
But
like
the
that.
basis of
I will have to tell you, that's great thinking. Thank you. Well, we can make a motion that, we like to continue the dialogue with them, but that we will not permit a storage facility.
but
We will not approve a storage facility. So if somebody can make a motion from the floor
Wait,
and
I
have
think
it
George is
seconded.
trying to say something. I think Mr. Strick, I'm sorry. I think George is trying to say something.
yeah, Denise actually raised Ms. Bond made a very important point. Part of that dialogue, or part of the compromise of having them come here and have this discussion with us, and us having input into an as of right development, is the seeking of the storage facility. So if you don't want the storage facility, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. LaBelle, you don't have to come here.
Yeah, they could build as of right.
Well,
Yeah.
let Mr. LaBelle speak for himself.
So George, you're correct. The building itself is actually underbuilt, so you could do 60 feet tall at 79,000 square feet as of right. George, the only thing I want to say, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just want to make sure you don't run afoul of your ULURP timeframe. I know you've only got 60 days from the referral, so you should just keep that in mind as far as coming back.
That's correct. We are on the clock.
So can I ask a question then of Mr. Lobel? If we are not in favor of the storage facility, will you still keep discussions with the community board open, or we're no storage facility and good day?
I'm a little bit hesitant to speak because I don't have Dino and Tommy here with me, so I don't want to represent, what they're saying. I would really defer to George's statement with regards to, they can do the building as of right. So if they're unable to do the storage facility, then there's no reason for the approval.
Well, in your further discussions with them, maybe you can tell them that we do appreciate the fact that they have opened a dialogue with us and that we would like to see that dialogue continue.
Happy to tell them that.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we take a vote on it?
Well, you need a motion, don't you?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said. Can we take a vote? So somebody has to make a motion.
A motion to start the voting.
Well, no, Sydney. So when you make a motion, you have to make a motion for something. So, for instance, so if you want to make the motion, Sydney, so you say, I move that we not approve this application for the storage facilities. That's how you would do it. Okay. So I want you to try it again if that's what you want to do. If you want to make the motion.
We don't
okay.
vote on it here in committee prior to.
Can you speak up, Sydney? We can't hear you.
So are we not voting on, aren't we going to motion to vote? So
right. So what's happening, Sydney, is here's what's happening. So what the developer wants is they want to put a storage facility, right?
Yeah,
and so we think that there are too many as it is, and so they came back with an alternate set of plans, which is good. We would just like to see something else. However, we're up against the clock because they submitted their application. Technically, I think it says November 25th. I don't know how that got to be the date, but technically we were outside of the 60 days as of yesterday. So we have to vote yes or no, right? If we vote yes, then they put up a storage facility. If we vote no, then they can put up whatever the hell they want to put up, right? So that's where we're at. What they've been nice enough to do is they've been nice enough to come to us to discuss this, whereas they did not know that they should have come to us before going to the former councilman. So the former councilman misdirected them as to the needs of the community, but that's not their fault now. So they put in the application and they're asking us for a vote. So kind of sort of we're in between the rock and the hard place, Sydney. So if we make the motion is, do we want, and I want you to do it, so I'm trying to teach you how to do this. The motion is, are we going to vote to approve the storage facility? Or are we going to vote to not approve the storage facility and hope that they come in and talk to us? Because they do not have to talk to us for what we want. They have to talk to us for the storage facility. Okay?
Thank you for clearing that up, Dr. Burke.
Not a problem.
Sydney?
Thank you for the explanation. I was
Not a
not
problem.
aware of what was going on.
Sydney, we still can't hear you, honey.
Thank you. I was well aware of what was going on. I motion not to vote no against the storage facility.
You want
I
to vote
second
no
the motion
on
to
the storage
disapprove.
facility.
Second the motion. I second the motion.
Well, first of all, she said no against the storage facility. It's a double negative. It's you vote no on the application for the storage facility. That makes it very clear.
Got it. I vote no on the application for the storage facility. I am motioning a no vote.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Okay,
Well,
thank
actually,
you.
Mr. Stricker, I'm actually going to abstain on this one. Truth be told, so you have all ayes and one abstention.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but we have to do the community right. I thank you for all your time that you provide to this land use committee, because sometimes it gets a little confusing. Thank you very much. And if there's no other business before the board, before the committee, I recommend that we close the committee meeting.
Well, I mean, I do that too, but I want to talk to Miss LaBelle just got off because I want to talk to him. Oh, he's still there. Okay. So, Mr. LaBelle, I think Mrs. Bond said something that was profound. And I do hope he's still there. Yeah, he's still there. She said something that's profound. And yes, we're up against the clock. So I guess if that was the case, then we voted not to approve, and we'll bring it for the full board on Thursday. However, what I please encourage you to do is, this dialogue has been refreshing for me, and I'm sure it's been refreshing. I'm speaking on behalf of this committee and the board. I'm certain that if the entire board were here, we would say the same thing. This dialogue has been refreshing. So although we don't want the storage facility, the ideas that I think that you were presented with will make you guys a lot of money. I really and firmly believe that. So I think it's up to you and us to do some homework to see if we can make that happen. And if we can't, then so be it. At least we tried. You know what I mean? I would rather us try, Mr. LaBelle, than to sit up there and say no and not try at all. And that's all I think we're saying. So even though we don't want the storage facility, we do want that space developed, and we do want a win-win for everybody. So I'm really happy that you came. And as I said, to reiterate what Mrs. Bond says, please do not shut the door on us, because we still want to talk to you.
I understand, Dr. Burke. I thank the committee for the deliberation on this. Obviously, it was very thoughtful. But I will give the message to Dino and to Tommy, and hopefully there'll be a way to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your effort.
So, Mr. Stricker, you need a motion for adjournment?
Yes, I do.
I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Land Use Committee.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody have a pleasant night and sweet dreams.
All right, good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Call Dino.
Mr. Torres?